Starbuck is joining me this time, so if you hear strange licking noises or anything, you know who it is. Alright, anyway, I would like to talk to you about the coming age of censorship. See, I think most of you are familiar at this point with the censorship that happens with companies like Twitter and Facebook, etc. And some of you are familiar with the financial censorship. That's done by companies like PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard. But I think what's coming is something quite different. It's browser-based censorship. If you don't know what a browser is, think things like Internet Explorer, Edge, Chrome, Firefox. These are all examples of different browsers, software that you use to quite literally browse the web. So Mozilla, which is the company that makes Firefox, just recently announced that deplatforming Trump isn't enough. That's what they said. Mozilla also claims that more has to be done to promote authoritative sources and to hide misinformation. We've heard these buzzwords and phrases before, but in other words it means that they want to promote mainstream and other communistic sources instead of real independent journalism. That's what they really mean. By the way, Mozilla is the company that pressured the CEO to resign because he donated to a cause against gay marriage. It was a private donation. He wasn't even being public about it and talking about it publicly. No. In other words, they outed their CEO because he was a Christian. It's that kind of a company. Also, the Chinese government is cracking down on browsers in China. It's requiring that the browsers that are available in China is requiring them to hide, as they put it, and I quote, misinformation, sensational headlines, and content that conflicts with the values of socialism, unquote. Now, just hear that again. How do you censor misinformation but also promote socialism? It might take a moment, but really think that one through. It doesn't work. Yes, according to Chinese state media, there's far too much self-media. Yes, the horror that independent journalists would exist, or that people would just tell each other the news. It's just, horrifying apparently. At least it is to the Chinese Communist Party. People over there are now starting to report news events to each other and spread the word, about what's going on in Hong Kong and so on. Mozilla seems to be inspired by the Chinese Communist Party, and I wouldn't expect it to take too long for Chrome to be as well, because Chrome is produced by Google. Brave, which is another browser, just released a modified version of their mobile browser for Apple to comply with Apple requirements. Now, this is not an outright case of censorship yet, but hear me out. See, Brave users on iPhones and iPads will no longer be able to earn rewards for their attention and won't be able to tip their favorite online creators via Brave, which is a unique feature of the browser. See, Apple wants to prevent independent journalists from being able to get paid. It's the first step. It's Brave saying that they care more about being in the app stores than they do about producing quality software or about creating an internet where merit gets rewarded, which was the whole point of their reward system. This doesn't bode well for the future. Even though this is not outright censorship by Brave yet, I think it's coming. And communists, if I'm just going to be blunt here, always fall back to trying to starve out those that they perceive to be their opponents, and that's what we're talking about in the Apple case there. Now, if you are using a desktop computer, a good browser is Dissenter, and it's developed by the same people who made Gab. The people who made Gab, they know censorship. They have faced censorship in basically everything they do. They've faced big tech trying to shut them down in basically everything they've done, and yet they keep going and they keep producing different things that are good. They've produced an alternative to YouTube called Gab TV, an alternative to Twitter and Facebook. That's actually Gab.com or just Gab Social. It's really the only technology firm that I can trust into the future. So that's Dissenter. I think it's a good choice. It's available on Windows, Linux, and Mac. At the moment, I don't have a good recommendation for good browsers for your phones because the phone market is owned by Google and Apple. If you're on Apple, like if you're on some kind of iCrap, all you have access to is Apple Store. Similarly, if you're on an Android-based phone, all you have access to is Google's App Store, Google Play, whatever you want to call it. They control what's there, they control what you have access to, and they control that with something of an iron fist. They kick out those who, for example, in the case of things like Gab, the alternative to Twitter, they kicked out the app because it allows too much free speech. I wish I were joking, but I'm not. I wish the Trump administration would have done more than just monitor the situation when it comes to big tech, because that kicking out some, Twitter alternative out of both app stores and thus preventing it from even existing on most phones is like a classic case of antitrust, of abusing their monopoly power in order to shut down some competition. That's what they did. And nothing was done about it by the government using laws that already exist. I'm not even asking for new ones, I'm just asking for enforcement. But it didn't happen. Now, this coming age of browser censorship is actually really unique if you think about it. Because until now, censorship has targeted the creators, the people who are producing, whether it's those who are, writing articles or producing videos. I know that's a lot more attention been brought to that, or even the people who are tweeting. It's them who are silenced. But this actually targets those who read or are trying to, or those who listen. The consumer, I guess someone like Google might say. Okay, let me give you an analogy. Imagine if you were using an old TV and you tried to tune into channel 12 and then the TV switched on you to channel 8 because someone else didn't want you to listen. That's essentially the equivalent, right? Because what we're going to have in the future, if this goes according to plan, is imagine this instead. If you're using your browser, whatever it is you happen to use, and then suddenly you try and go to a site and you get a message that says you're not allowed to read that. That's what's coming. And it's pretty horrifying to think about, but I think that's the future that we're heading toward. And there are few people who seem to be connecting the dots. And given that the Chinese Communist Party is pushing this, and now Mozilla is talking about how we don't have just enough censorship, yeah, I'm pretty sure this kind of is going to flow down the line. Big tech often has allegiances to China, and you see some trends in that what the Chinese Communist Party pushes, different big tech companies then just magically start adopting. No connection there whatsoever, of course. But that is a pattern that I have seen. In any case, try out Dissenter if you use a real computer. If I find some, great alternative for mobile devices, I'll let you know about that when I find out. Wait, if you enjoyed that video, please remember to like and share. I can't grow without you. Also, if you want to be reliably notified of new videos, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. If you're able to support the production of these videos, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe at Subscribestar, or maybe get one of the healthier products, or even get some merch.